the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Rich Hoffman here. Hey, everybody's talking about how aggressive the Trump administration is and all the hemispheric shielding that's going on. Kristi Noem's new job. It's going to be a good thing. We're living in we've lived through a very dangerous time, and we had to have justice for what was done to us. So when people say, well, why do you got to be so aggressive and harm Iran the way you are? And why do we have to treat Venezuela the way we are? And why do we have to be at war and talk so tough and pummel people and into the mud like we are? What about poor China? China owns a lot of our media, these targets, if you look at the big picture. And Iran, everybody tried to work with Iran, try to make good deals. And Iran is always looming in the background, trying to be problematic all the time, and they brag about having the ability to make warheads, like 11 of them, and that wasn't going to fly. Trump administration can't walk away from those negotiations with them being arrogant and thumbing their nose at an honest attempt to have broker peace in the Middle East. And if they're going to fund all this terrorist activity, then you got to just cut the head of the snake off. And that's what's happening. That's why the war with Iran had to happen. And, obviously Democrats support that kind of insurrection. They want to see the downfall of the United States. And if you really peel back the layers, China's behind all that. China's behind all the property acquisition all over the United States. A lot of the media companies, they've been buying it all up and trying to steer things in their direction. And it's been ugly. It's been a nasty, nasty occasion. So, but after what they did with COVID, China, after what they did with COVID, and other elements of global politics, World Economic Forum, change state economy, Bill Gates, everybody gets mad that they're not in jail and tied up somewhere. Well, they have a lot of money, so they can buy courts, they can buy freedom. They don't get in trouble. And yeah, I think Jeffrey Epstein's still alive out there. He's too rich to die that way. He could easily have a body double. You could easily buy off security guards, elements of law enforcement. It's not difficult at all to do if you have the kind of money Jeffrey Epstein had, or the kind of extortion he had over people. So how do you punish him? So Trump doesn't have the constitutional ability to just throw all these people in jail. Can't do it. But you can attack their mechanisms of evil. The way that the bad guys use these countries like Iran, like Venezuela, like Mexican drug cartels, all these hostile agents, North Korea, how they use Russia attacking Ukraine and trying to get everybody always stirred up and then turned in the wrong direction. When Trump says he's not going to put boots in the ground and fight these forever wars, that's because we never should have been doing that. I joke a little bit, I'm half serious, but when what was the Iraq wars over? Was it really about oil and securing oil and oil prices and American interests in the region? Was it really about nuclear weapons of mass destruction that they never really found, and they just moved them over the border in Syria and played shuffle the deck because Americans played so politely? The Bush administration was too nice. Was it really about all those things, or was really some Masonic desire to go get the DNA of Gilgamesh at the Baghdad Museum? Because on the opening days of the attack, they went straight to the museum. It wasn't about securing the area for all the military targets that we talked about, and the oil wells and everything, the protect flow to Kuwait. They went to the Baghdad Museum, and that's well chronicled. And that's conspiracy theory talk that's evolving into more discussion now that people have retired and are talking about these things on some of the podcasts are floating around out there. What was the war about? Actually getting Gilgamesh DNA to change the health conditions of the human race? Was war in Afghanistan and all the conspiracies that went on there really about hiding things like the giant of Kandahar? So these are real things that people are talking about out there. And they've lost faith in their institutions, and they've lost faith in the narrative. What the nightly news tells you is we're going to war to save these people from communism, or we're going to war to save these people from some, detrimental element, from Fidel Castro, and we're going to have these fights. But yet the bad people give all these maniacs upward mobility to be hostile agents. Communism was blown on by many financiers all over the world to be a thorn in our side. And Iran, when they had their revolution in the late 70s, was a Marxist movement hidden behind religion. And so you couldn't criticize the Marxism because you couldn't criticize Islamic faith. And that's how they got by with it. And they sold it in the United States by saying you can't criticize minority communities, even though they're shuffling in socialism and Marxism in every city and getting everybody lined up for food stamps and welfare benefits, and making that race of people continued. Instead of slavery to some plantation, they were slavery to the government, who owned them and gave them free benefits so they could make them essential instruments of weaponized instruments. And the same thing's going on with radical Islamic faith. And they were a thorn in the side everywhere. Everybody, all these antagonizers were out there causing trouble and needless harm to many millions of people. And lots of people have been suffering needlessly. The cartels in Mexico, for instance. Venezuela's aggression, for instance. And China's behind all of it. And then China was built by the deep state. They would have never had any money if all these investment firms didn't funnel a lot of stolen wealth from the Federal Reserve. And these aren't conspiracies. This is true stuff. If you go to the Teton conferences out there in Jackson Hole and listen to the Fed talk and all the centralized banks talk, wealth acquisition and the money manipulation of modern monetary theory has been hanging out in the background. They funnel it all through Wall Street. Now, again, these aren't conspiracies. It sounds crazy to talk about them all because the media has told us that it's crazy to talk about these things. But here's the deal. The reason everybody's upset about all these wars, Iran being conquered, not with boots on the ground, but by technology and by economics. They have the economy of a dime falling out of a couch, and they can't fight a war. They don't have the ships, they don't have the missiles, they don't have the planes. They've been totally declawed. And that's the way it's going to be. That's why the Obama administration, because they wanted a radical element of Islam to poke everybody in the background for their own ideology issues, what the Democrat Party clearly represents, globalism, destruction of America. The reason why there is money given by the Biden administration and the Obama administration to Iran is to keep them alive, because they had a Marxist economy that didn't function. And they were poor and they couldn't fight. So they gave them money to buy stuff that they could be terrorists. And now Trump's taken all that away. As an elected official, we put him in office to do this kind of job. And we don't want these radical losers all over the world doing bad things. We don't want cartels running Mexico. If we want to go down to Mexico and have a nice vacation or have some business exchange, we don't want the cartels pulling you over and getting bribes off of you, or all the corruption that goes on. We don't want that. And we don't want Venezuela to have to screw around with our energy markets. And we certainly want Iran sponsoring all the terrorism that they do in the area. We want peace in the Middle East, and everybody should get along. Islam should be able to get along with Jews and Christians, and everybody should have a good time and worship how you want. But to use it to advance destabilization, that's what's been going on. And all these characters that did all this stuff in the background have it coming. And the best way to punish those who brought us COVID, who brought us global lockdowns, who brought us a real attack on our infrastructure by propping China up and then letting China be a thorn in our side, and then having all these antagonizers basically feed China, the way to choke them off is the art of war. And you take away all their covers and expose them for what they are. And that's going to be done economically. So the attacks to Iran basically strips them, neutralizes them, takes them off the table as a global threat. Everybody tried to be peaceful and rationalize with them, but they aren't. They're a hostile state. They've been trouble in the world since they started in the late 70s. They were a Marxist infusion to feed a communist country, China, and a former communist country that still looms in the background as a disciple of Karl Marx, Russia, Venezuela, socialist, most of Central America, leaning socialist, Mexico, socialist, Canada, socialist. All these characters have been hostile. They've been anti-American. They're anti-capitalism. They're anti-upward mobility. And they all played a part in this global push to lock down everybody, take away our freedoms, use COVID as a bioweapon to destroy our economy and do a great reset, which the World Economic Forum was all attached to. And if you think that's all conspiracy theory, it's coming out. It's all out there in the open. And the people who are crying most about Iran are those people who use all these characters to cause us all trouble. So forget the courts, forget all the little United Nations nonsense, forget all these treaties that were signed that neutralized America so that these bad guys could exist and make everybody suffer. Forget all that. It's time to punish them big, show the world that it had happened, and use capitalism, give the world upward mobility, and give people freedom. Give them freedom in Hong Kong, give them freedom in Venezuela, give them freedom in Mexico, and definitely give them freedom in Iran. Give them freedom in England, give them freedom all over Europe. Lead by example, and that means taking away the hostile people that are causing so much trouble. And Iran had no other intention but to cause us trouble. So pure justification. I think it's great. This is what I voted for. I want everybody in that regime gone. I don't want them to be a problem. And I'm totally good with everything Trump's doing and then some. I think he's actually being too nice. And we deserve what's happening. The world deserves what's happening because what they tried to do in 2020, stolen elections, and all the election problems all over the world, wasn't just in the United States. And then the COVID, the Great Reset, unleashed on the back of COVID. That was planned by Bill Gates while he was hanging around Russian honeypots that Jeffrey Epstein was a part of. And they were talking about the pandemic back then. If only we could bring the entire nation into one control and inspire this new world government. So let's build a bioweapon called COVID in a Chinese lab and unleash it on the world. And that's exactly what they did. And you use the hostilities of places like Iran to usher it through, because while we're fighting them, we're not paying attention to what's going on over there. And if you really want to peel back the onion to get to the root of it, that's how you do it. You destroy all the disguises, pull off all the masks, and that's what's been going on in Venezuela. That's what's going on right now in Mexico, and that's what's going on in Iran. And I highly support it. I think it's great, and that's how you fight these battles. And you don't need to put boots on the ground and occupy the area. Everybody can stay home, stay at your bases, stay domestic. Just send a nice bomb, send a nice mission of a missile to a hostile location. Compliments of capitalism, which is awesome. Paid for by capitalism, which is the best in the world. And that's how you win a war. And that's how you defeat Marxism, is destroy and strip them away and give them nothing to hide behind. And that's exactly what's happened in Iran right now. And I think it's wonderful. Highly support what President Trump is doing. I want to see him do a whole lot more of it. And and the Democrats are upset, and the media is upset, and everybody's crying and whining because they know what Iran means to their Marxist cause. It was their disguise. It was their thorn in the side of a safe haven of capitalism in America, and they wanted to bring it down. And now those excuses have been stripped away to reveal everybody who is always a problem. And there's nowhere for them to hide now. And they don't like it, but that's too bad. I think it's great. Love what Trump's doing, and love that he's taking bold action on Iran. It's about time. No more just talk. Now we see some action, and that's what we've needed all along. So good on Trump and those supporting the invasion of Iran and ripping the mask off a great enemy in the world that is really the root cause of Marxism, communism, socialism, everywhere where it exists, and putting them down and crushing them with their own economies. It's the best way to do it. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe. Make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. I think you will. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
Thank you for listening.